Hi there, and welcome to A Matter of Trust. This is episode 13, and the topic today is perception. My co-host is Yeshua, and I am Patrick, and we are looking forward to dive into this topic today. I am going to start off by actually just reading a few definitions. I Googled it. I'm curious. I wonder if we could get input. That was not exactly what we would say. Anyway, first off, it says that it can be the ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses. And then it's topped with the way in which something is regarded, understood, or interpreted. And I'm going to end with another statement on perception saying, perception is the organization, identification, and interpretation of sensory information in order to represent and understand the presented information or experience. And yeah, this can be a great starting point. And with this little foundation, what do you think perception is, or how do you think about it in your life?
Well, perception is a skill developed by being aware of your surroundings and yourself in the midst of that. We talked about silence before, for example, where you can see people, for example, are attempting to avoid inner perception by engaging in, for example, drug use or praying to certain figures that has nothing to do with God, for example, and different kind of things. But perception is the ability to not only just listen to what other people have to say, no matter how wise they may seem. Sorry, my camera is on a I don't know what you call these kind of things where you hang it close, so it can see like this little fella here. Oh, it's all right for now. We're gonna do as we have it right now. No. No. Just a second. Ladies and gentlemen, napkins. Don't even wonder why this works. It just works.
Yeah, like very formable. Like you can shape them.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a nice little tool to have.
So now it's not just a napkin; it's a stabilizer.
It's a stabilizer. Yeah, multi-purpose use. So back to perception again. It's yeah, like I mentioned, it's a skill that you practice by being aware of yourself inside and outside of yourself and the correlation between those two. So for example, you can see that there are certain people in your surroundings and they affect you in a certain way. You can also see that when you start to be silent, as we had talked about in the previous episode, you start to develop listening to yourself from inwards. That is also a perception, like a essentially another language that you actually get to tap into and understand by being silent. That's just a few words on what perception is from the perspective that I'm given. So what do you think, Patrick, in terms of what you just mentioned now, and also like completely personal, what kind of perception do you have on perception?
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that first off, I'm just gonna comment that I noticed how you introduced this I mean, you couple it with the thinking of training it. Like it's and in the of course it's not really maybe the definition of it, but it's really interesting that it can be so closely linked that when we think perception, we cannot avoid thinking it's something I train. It's a skill. It's not just there existing in my life. Also, in the definition, it talked about being something that we use our senses to, and you also added the inner perception, or like listening to oneself, listening to something from the inside. And when I think of perception, I'm very much thinking about how I experience the world, how I perceive the world. And I know it has so many factors. So that's why I think it's good. We had like several definitions, because one thing is our senses, but what comes in through the senses is just many different things. And then we also emotionally, it can trigger something inside us that is more than just what we would call the six senses or five. but then you suddenly emotionally somewhere, and that will also affect how you experience the world, how you perceive the world. So it's this very moldable thing. And if I have a really good experience with good emotions about going to the beach, I will perceive going to the beach as something nice. And if I have really negative emotions about some experience going to the beach, I might perceive going to the beach as something bad. So I lean very much into the idea of it being a skill that you also train. And at the same time, I'm aware that there's a big part of my way of experiencing the world that I might not be aware of. It's like it's always growing. I can always learn more about what is actually, how I'm actually organizing in my mind with my thoughts, how I am organizing this experience that I have. And yeah, there's so much autopilot, of course, because our brain have to deal with tons of input. And this also shows that it's, again, something linked to awareness. We never get around, we never avoid awareness, becoming aware, becoming conscious. And maybe I could ask you what, I mean, it could be cool if we could come up with some examples maybe of when do we use it, maybe actively use, or actively was aware. When could we, is there an example or some examples where we know we're actively aware of our perception and maybe the fact that we wanted to switch it and what we did? Or like, do you have some examples, or you can make one up, or you can maybe remember something?
I can give several examples, definitely, both in general, also personal examples. Um, so, for one, for example, perception. I met like a guy the other day that is he's well he's been in a hole, and he's attempting to climb up and free himself from like bad patterns of like drug use and bad company and that kind of stuff. Uh, and we talked about certain things about health in general, and how to create a ideal life for yourself and how to tune into that. And we tend to agree on many things, although there was a difference in perception in the way that he actually didn't take himself seriously or take the words seriously. He was just nodding and thinking with his logical self that, it makes sense, and yeah, it should be totally like that. And when they say it should be totally like that, he's also kind of saying it's not like that for him yet. He hasn't come to that conclusion, so he can actually act upon it. That's the reasoning for that is a shift in perception, like a difference in that. Because I tend to work towards, like, even if it's just like 0.5% or 1% every day, I tend to work my way towards a more ideal life for myself. And the words that I say and the words that other people say, I take seriously, in the sense that I am aware that God talks through them, and they have a message for me, and there's a message for me within me. So that takes practice, which is why I say that perception is learning a skill, essentially. Yeah. So actually, that's both like a general example and a personal one. It's a clear one though, because you can easily think the same, but if you don't act upon it, like the perception itself is, the opinion itself is worthless. It's not bringing any fruits. It's not growing anything sustainable for you, or tuning you into a more ideal, perfect life for yourself.
So it's almost like, yeah, there's at least two sides, because you can, I mean, I don't know, if people say something, I hope that they mean it, but of course they might just kind of mean it. If you say this like logically, it can be kind of believed logically that it's possible, but then that other level, or next level, or whatever we could call it, a depth of actually thinking, it's possible also for me, or like it's so not just looking at it from the outside, perceiving what is possible in life, for example, but also feeling it. So that's really interesting, because you can have I mean, even us, we're just sitting and talking. We're not, I mean, the way that we are acting is, of course, that we are doing this podcast. That is doing something, but still, we are talking about many things. And of course, people don't see us necessarily do it unless they've seen some other content we made that documented it. But yeah, it's very, very important. And I'm reminded of this every time we talk, to really like ask myself, okay, we talk about this and it makes a lot of sense, and how is it represented in my life? It's very important, and yeah, I think it's interesting that you mention it, and especially the example with other people. It can make it very clear how perception differs when we are among other people, because that's where we get these mirrors. For example, we can also see our own weaknesses. Oh, well, weaknesses, I only use that word because I feel I'm in a weaker area of my personality if I cannot believe something, and I meet someone and they are like, oh yeah, sure, this is fine, this is cool, this is easy, let's do that. And for example, if I then in myself feel, oh, it doesn't feel easy to me or seem easy to me, like, then I realize, okay, I feel weaker in that area, for example. Or we can just say different also. But yeah, people can be a good mirror. And of course, it can also be the other way around, that we find it easy to see something, see a possibility, see something, and others are like, nah, no, can't see it. Like, it's yeah. So people help us, I think, to get a map.
Definitely. Also, sometimes without even seeing these people. Like I was asked to come and join one of my French friends the other day, and I just asked from within how that felt with me, and it was a clear no. Like down to my stomach was just no, don't do it, don't do it. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do it. So I'm just gonna say no. And and then later, hearing from various different sources, it's it gets clear why that was what I received. There was a lot of drama around this person and tendencies that is not like equal to the qualities that I seek within my friendships. And without even having met this guy or anything like that, my perception, my intuition told me that you shouldn't go anywhere near this guy. I mean, you can say hi, but it's not one of your people, as it is right at least. So yeah, like that's perception as well.
So it's kind of perception seems like quite a broad definition, because now when you explained it there, it reminded me of intuition. So intuition is basically that inner perception in a way, the inner side of perception. And yes, it very, very valuable to have that sense, what we call it, a sort of sixth sense, or like it's an additional input. Maybe it can be discussed what it is exactly and what it stems from, but it's
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the word intuition, it's like intuition. So tuition, what is that? And if you think like in English, it's something huh?
Yeah, something you can be taught, or tuition, like, or something that's actually linked to being taught something, but or like a fee for being taught something, the price of it.
Yeah, it's a grant, it's something given to you. Tuition is like okay, now this fund will fund my education. For example, in America, there's these tuitions that you get for college and these kind of things in schools and such. And so it's something that's granted, and in refers to inside you. So it's something granted from inside of you, intuition. Uh, put it up like very roughly, because that's all it is about. It's something granted from inside of you that gives you certain directions in life. So definitely has a lot to do with perception, because we can sometimes if we don't have anger in our life, we can get like the anger I talked about last time. We can get kind of confused by many different things and think that many different things are intuition talking. Um, in reality, it's our best attempt to listen to ourselves as we are, as the highest we can possibly fathom. Um, and you can view that in many different ways. Personally, for me, I can't imagine anything bigger than what created everything. So how do you use like intuition in your daily life, or even perception? We're talking about perception, so let's take it from a perspective of perception. How is like, do you have daily routines where like trying to be extra perceptive or something like that?
Well, I do actually work on it every day, because, for example, when I wake up, I take this moment where I'm like, okay, how do I perceive the world in this moment, just as I open my eyes? How is it? What do I feel in my body? What do I hear? How about the light? How I feel inside? Like, what thoughts are striking me? And it varies. It varies. It's some days can be so light and I don't know, easy, and I maybe almost jump out a bit excited, and other days it's not exactly like that. It's a scale for this, for me. I believe there is for many. At least that's what I hear when I hear people talk, and they are not just coaches trying to sell themselves. But I then also the way I work on it. So this is the first one, observing. Then it's sitting down, and preferably as the first thing, or almost first thing, I could also go for a walk if I have the time, because that'll give me extra observation and just, yeah, listening, giving me a chance to see, okay, what comes through my senses, and is there actually some ideas coming from me, from inside? Is there some voice inside telling me some things? And then I sit down, writing, and I would write gratitude. I would write things I'm grateful for. And it's sometimes also really easy, and other times it's like, okay, what do I really feel grateful for? And yeah, sometimes I just start with a default. But the idea is I want to prime myself. I want to prime my perception. So I want to perceive the world as even better than maybe the starting point. Even if I had a fine start of the morning, I actually want to see if I can work toward it feeling even better. And when I cultivate feeling grateful, focusing my attention on things that are actually kind of nice, reminding myself, hey, that is actually nice. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I believe that it's working with perception, and yeah, to get to perceive life as even to perceive life as something to be grateful for and to feel good about, because every day we wake up, it can be like a gift. It can be perceived as a gift for new opportunities, a new day with new options, choices to be made. That would be an example from daily life. The most consistent. There are many things throughout the day, many cases.
That's a great way to do it. Like I also write my gratitudes every day, like 10 gratitudes every day. And my goal to kind of orient me into a certain direction that I wish to go. Also with actions each and every day. And just as you say before, it's about priming that ideal life and state of being, not only for yourself but for people around you and the whole humanity itself. And if we could take it all the way to the end that we can imagine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what if someone is sitting there and like, can I really change it? And these small habits, do they really change it? Could we make some stronger examples of what may change perception? If this, micro managing habits, if it seems a little bit not touching people, if it seems not to have that impact, I just, what would big examples be in life where perception can be maybe totally pulled to another state or to another level?
I'm not sure I understand the question actually.
Okay, it's just like things that could happen in your life, even because you decide to, or because it just happened and you're like, whoa, you're surprised by it. Maybe it could cause shock. It can stir a lot of strong emotions, maybe, and it can definitely, I believe, change perception drastically. So, because we mentioned the small examples in the everyday life, but sometimes I think it takes dramatic events in people's life to really push perception.
Hmm. Yeah, indeed. At least pushing themselves beyond their contemporary perception.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like also the other day, like one of my friends broke up with his or her boyfriend, and it was kind of a conversation after like being with her and talking with her about it. It was kind of a shift between what she had allowed herself to feel worthy of in the past, and that's kind of expressed itself in her relationships, which was not very healthy for her and not ideal for her, not really doing her the best of the best. And we had a conversation about this, you know. Again, we talked about it on failure, actually, I think, how like failures and these kind of seemingly mistakes can actually be something very beneficial and meant to be, because in the end we're humans, and we are, as the Bible says, is sinning, or we, as in common tongue, make mistakes all the time. It's a part of the nature that we at some point chose. We're going to have to just deal with that with the best tools that we got. And that is when we talk about like human ability. Without if there's not divinity involved with that, it's perception. You can work with perception, because perception will inevitably open doors for grander view, like a better horizon, regardless of if you're religious or not, or what you believe in, for that matter. I have had a big journey on discovering different kinds of communities and ways of believing and studying these kind of things and seeing what makes sense to me, what didn't. And it all came down eventually to one point, which people will figure out eventually. It's just a matter of training that perception and really trusting that whatever you're going through, you are going through a time that will bring you to that promised time that you are promised. So.
That you're promised, and if people don't feel that something is promised to them, then it could be what they hope for, what they wish for. It's definitely not. It's not. They don't have to give up if they don't feel somebody promised them anything.
No. In fact, they really can't. It's just a matter of choice. Like if you want to do better and have a better life, just make one action every day. Like one action every day. Eventually get to a point where you have a revelation. It can be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to be naive. You don't have to believe anything you hear from anyone, or keep believing in the things that you believed in the past. You don't have to. Small steps every day will lead you to an understanding of that which you seek, that which you desire.
I also have witnessed, maybe probably both in my life and others' life, but it's easy to see it in others. And it's the thing that even if people tell me they cannot change, or that their life cannot change, I just observe, and over time, but over quite like several years maybe, I just notice, that thing changed, and it's just gradual, and it's just, or maybe something happened eventually that were kind of out of their hands, or that they had to respond to, and because of that, perception changed a bit. And so it's interesting to see, and it's also very normal that if people have stuff they haven't figured out in their life. I say normal because books and people I talk to, they talk about this, like the crisis people can be struck by. It can be called a midlife crisis, or whatever crisis. Can come in the form of a breakup, or something with your body that suddenly you cannot use it the way you used to, or can be so many things. Someone in your life can just no longer be there. They left, or grandparents disappeared, or whatever. It can be all these things, and we cannot guard ourselves against all this. So it's almost like this journey as a human being. it's just a part of it. It's an essential part of it to have these experiences that will change how we see the world. It's like it just must be. And then sometimes we can embrace it so much that we want to be aware of it and maybe want to trigger it a bit and try actively in different directions. But the changing perception seems to be part of life. Of course, it can be more stuck for some than others. Maybe we're not always feeling satisfied with it. But it's inevitable that some things will happen.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Definitely.
Even on the deathbed, there are stories that people write before.
Yeah, before things even happen, like yeah, definitely. Like in the Bible, there's prophecies, for example, in the Revelation, like the last part of the Bible, the New Testament, it talks about like this whole thing that happens, like in this time we're living in right now, and the time that will come after that. It's yeah, interesting read for anyone interested in that, definitely.
How can we help each other develop perception, preferably in a constructive direction? Is there
Well,
some?
yes, we can help people by sharing our honest thoughts with them. That is a good way to train perception, because the more people will hear the same message, the more they'll start to actually see how that refers to themselves, instead of just being something that comes in from one ear and out the other. So that, like, yeah, I mean, honesty is a great way to do so. It allows you to speak freely, allows you for you to expand your perception. It allows people to get a hold of their perception, and yeah, it's divinely guided. I mean, it's a divine process of doing that. Like the God or one source or universe, however you want to prefer to call infinite divinity, is just that. Like sharing the perception and perspective of God. So yeah, I mean, and then we can talk about all other kinds of stuff, like schools that promotes perception, or um, uh, church is one I use for expanding my perception, and different kinds of communities, yeah. So in general, sharing with others is a good rule of thumb. Just sharing with others and sharing your honest opinion with others, because sometimes you're afraid to say something, and when you're afraid to say that, just say it. I mean, it's not gonna hurt anyone. And if it goes to sour, well, you still have gotten more perception. You have been demonstrated how, like, certain people do not belong where you're going, for example, and that they belong somewhere else, and it's just choice. So you get more aware about yourself and others that way.
Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily about just saying nice things. It's more about being truthful, so perception can develop naturally, and that is
It's more about it.
and that is constructive in itself.
Definitely. You hear a lot of people talking nice to other people just for the sake of being nice, and that's not nice. It's it really isn't, because, like, God wants us all to be like perfect children, you know, and you do not make your children perfect by saying that everything they do is perfect. You simply don't. Like, if you have a child or a baby, for example, they do a lot of things that you think is ridiculous, like throwing food on the ground with a spoon and crying out loud for nothing, screaming, that kind of stuff, And yeah, I see this as a way, like that's a way. So to understand it, at least.
And these babies throwing food on the floor, they're usually very, very loved. And actually parents can have a hard time finding faults with them. They just see perfection in the ups and downs. So that is a fine example. I also thought of another example because the cases you mentioned, it also I saw the philosophical and you know, the bigger picture dimension in what you talk about. And I also just remembered some very, very practical examples in my life. For example, if there's something I found difficult, and then maybe on my own I wouldn't do it, but then if someone invites me to join them, because they are very experienced, for example, and I can just sort of tag along and observe, and then maybe try at my own pace whenever I feel like it. That is a very, very efficient way of moving. That has been and can be a very efficient way of moving my perception, and I think it's a very common way. I think it's used in at workplaces and schools and communities to support others and really lead the way, and then they can in time, in turn, see that, oh, okay, hey, I can also be the one leading the way. I can also take these steps. I can also do this. But it can be quite a big mouthful or a big challenge on our own sometimes. So I know for sure that it helped me and helps me when others are uh, deciding to invite me or make the journey easy for me in some aspects. And this is something I know, okay, means I can also do this to others. And I like to do it when I when I see a possibility and it feels right. Like, okay, here I'm gonna step in. I'm gonna offer. We actually like this podcast. It wouldn't have happened if it was not us doing it together. I wouldn't just have launched it on my own. I know that's also an example. So we can there are many ways, and then I just also wanted to mention the simple things like smiling at people or like giving a compliment, doing these small things. It can also help move perception about the world towards, oh, the world has nice people in it, for example. Yeah, these things can also move perception.
Definitely. Like the way I got in touch with Christ, for example, was an invitation to the church, and that moment has changed everything. Like the last couple of weeks, like I came back to where I am now. I've lived here for 10 years, but I came back here, and by God's will, I just followed what felt right to me, and that's God's will. And when I was in this church, it was just like I found that anger, found that whole point that everything is circling around. Like everything we ever know, everything we ever told, or something like that is right there. And
Mm-hmm.
and when I came here, I was like, okay, I need a home, I need a good home. So I prayed for this. I need work that pays me well, so I can also live, and prayed for this. And I need some clothes because I mean, I've been living homeless for a long time now, but seems like a long time relatively. Um, and my clothes are starting were starting to have like holes in them and stuff like that. And just in a matter of a week, everything turns up. Like now I have a place to live. I have not having a day without like food or anything like that. They have a job for me, someone I talk to, and people just gave me clothes like out of nowhere, just came. And all these things just happened because I really just I figured out for me where all of these things come from, and that came from that invitation that you're talking about. That one invitation, Like, and I was doing something besides that on the same day of the church, and that was I was invited to be in a sitcom, and I was really looking forward to this. Yet something about the church seemed more interesting. I was like, that's interesting, because I don't know why that is. I just have to check it out, you know. And then I realized what it is, because it's so much more meaningful. Like chasing careers doesn't really work in the best way of doing God's work on earth, like the work you're here to do, like the most perfect ideal thing you can imagine yourself doing, like the most amazing thing, is that, you know, Jesus and God. I realized that, at least. And yeah,
Like
I,
it's very noticeable that
yeah, definitely.
you sort of found a tribe or a place that you ah it's very noticeable.
Definitely.
And
It's yeah, it gets clear. That's because the anger, when you get that anger, you are stuck to the seabed. You're not going anywhere. Not going anywhere. And that requires a lot of faith when we're talking about, like, believing and seeing these things in our perception that is beyond what our five senses can catch. It's just so important to just yeah. I think that was very interesting with that invitation that you mentioned, because that really changes everything. The invitations that I remember, like, also talking about invitations, that I was once doing a lot of psychedelics, a lot of different psychedelics, and I in one DMT trip, I was sitting and meditating. No, I think it was mushrooms and weed, actually, to be to be completely precise. And what happened is, I remember an angel, like in the form of light, came to me with a letter, like a sealed letter with like a red seal on the letter. And the angel told me that I was invited. And for a long time, I was like, what am I invited to? I mean, I couldn't, like, see exactly what the invitation was for. I didn't knew. Like, I had no idea. And then recently I realized what the invitation was for. And now I'm just going with that invitation, that way of life, you know. That is where everything springs from there. So great a feeling, you know, to just surrender into, and knowing that you don't have to do everything yourself. That's a little bit about me. So,
it's good. It's good. I remember
yeah.
I heard that little story about the angel appearing with that letter, and I don't remember if it was in the podcast or outside of it, but
No, outside of it, yeah.
it's kind of beautiful that you now feel things are aligned, matching up. So just linked, and yes, the surrender part. Wow, is letting go of the feeling or the idea that we need to know everything, be in charge of everything, and find out everything. Wow, it's such
It's
a
not our job.
could be
It's
such
not
a
our
relief.
job.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
I also think what
Yeah.
you mentioned about the career is very interesting, and I just wanted to add that career, it doesn't mean career is bad, but chasing career for the sake of career is maybe not the best way. I I probably I could imagine that what the career that happens as you follow a natural sort of pattern, or as you surrender into what is given to you, what we are invited to, that career that comes from that, I mean, it can still be a career, but maybe we didn't plan it as much. There are different paths, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's
again,
valuable.
it's not up to us. I mean, it's more freeing thing that you don't have to figure all of these things out yourself, and really go hard for it. Well, you can go hard for it, but going hard for it with your head into a wall, that's not a good way of doing it.
Mm.
So, So yeah, I would put it like that, definitely.
Heart first, not head first.
Yeah, definitely. And also, chasing career can also be seen as kind of praying to a divinity of money, for example, or fame or glory or something like that. So it's not actually doing the best for. I mean, some people have great careers that is granted by God, of course. That's needed definitely. But just for the career's sake, or the money's sake, or the fame and celebrity or whatever, that's all. That's all another entity than what is intended for beings like us, human beings. So that's worth knowing as well.
Do you have more questions or ponderings?
I would say that perception is a funny thing. It's a funny thing because, again, like I mentioned in the first examples in this video, like we can think the same things, but we can perceive them very differently. We can one can use it for the very best of everything. Another one uses it for the very best of himself or selfish reasons or something like that. And that really doesn't serve a lot. So yeah, I think it's interesting to really dig deep into perception, not only to talk about it like we do now, but actually studying perception, studying your own perception, and questioning those viewpoints, insights, or beliefs that you have that may be lies actually. So you can kind of guide yourself or be guided into a better way of being who you truly are.
Mm-hmm. And maybe an indicator of the fact that one is lying to oneself might be if we feel inadequate, if we feel we're not good enough, or if we feel something is not possible for us, or then there's a likelihood we are lying to ourselves, because I mean, if we talk about the beauty in people, and if we go into the spirit of people and just the truth, living one's truth, and or maybe even a sense of purpose, living one's purpose, then it can flow naturally. It can, and it should not. We should not try to stop ourselves. Then there's a likelihood that we could could be defined as a lie if we stop ourselves from even believing that we could have a purpose and we could have everything we ask for, kind of.
It is granted. It is granted. It's just a matter of how devoted you are. So, everyone, thank you so much for listening in and tuning in to A Matter of Trust. We have very much enjoyed the whole thing of talking about perception, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you all next time. I am Yeshua, and with me is Patrick, and we are A Matter of Trust.